Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 36 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers and follow us on social media / The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by jazzsports.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit Jazz Sports and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms, conditions, and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs to sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my premium plays before the line moves. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, we have a fantastic show for you today, fully loaded, because we have Marco D'Angelo from Wager Talk and Chris Fallica from ESPN College Game Day to break down the Preakness Stakes. Not only that, we're going to get into UFC 262 Part 2, because we did one podcast on it already, with Cub Fan Danny. So extremely excited to get this thing rolling. Before we get into that, my friends, I wanted a quick touch on the whole Aaron Rodgers situation in the NFL. And yes, obviously I'm a Bear fan, but I'm taking my Bears hat off, and I just kind of want to look at this thing logically, right? Aaron Rodgers obviously doesn't have anything to prove. You know, his stats, his numbers pretty much tell it all. What he did last year with this Packers team becoming this close. I mean, Tampa was just had some fortunate things happen to him, especially that halftime bomb that they scored the touchdown on. But I really thought that the Packers might have been the second best team in the league last year. And I'm not even sure that they're not. You know, Kansas City had number one, and Tampa Bay I had to upgrade, obviously. But Aaron Rodgers is upset because of the whole Love pick, right? The whole Jordan Love last year when they needed, well, in Rodgers' mind and Packer fans' minds, a wide receiver. If you remember, the same thing happened when Rodgers was drafted late in the first round for Brett Favre, right? It's kind of interesting to me that Rodgers let it bother him kind of as much as Favre did in a way. Favre just kind of played it off more and just let him sit there, and the Packers kind of had to kick him out. But the Packers ain't kicking Rodgers out right now because Rodgers is still elite, as you saw last year. But either way, I don't know why the Packers did that. When you see quarterbacks play into their 40s, and there's absolutely no reason to try to grab one in the first round and trade up where you could get anybody else to fix it. So I understand Rodgers' frustration here. I also understand the fact that the Packers haven't drafted an offensive player in the first round in 10 years, except for Rodgers' replacement in Love. You know, that's got to upset him a little bit. It's kind of like the organization is just saying, F you. Now, does that work? Do you have that kind of power if you're working for a corporation? Hell no. It kind of reminded me of a corporation in a way, right? I mean, the boss does something that is like, has nothing to do with you. It's probably going to make it harder on you, but he does it anyway, even though you're his best rep or something. Yeah, I hear about those situations all the time. But obviously this is the NFL, and there's a lot less, well, great workers or stars to go around for these teams. Quarterbacks are the stars. I really think the Packers dropped the ball here because obviously the league's changed and the players do have more power. I mean, it almost was a power trip for the Packers to do this, trying to put Rodgers in his place or something. Like the GM's more important than Aaron Rodgers to this team. That's not true. That's like saying the GM's more important than Patrick Mahomes. I think the GM's more important than Patrick Mahomes. You don't understand football. You know? And very strange how it all played out. I guess I'd be pissed if I was Rodgers, but there's a flip side to this coin. The flip side to this coin is that the Packers fired a coach for Aaron Rodgers. Super Bowl ring coach with him, which I actually agreed with. They fired the defensive coordinator last year that screwed up. One play. His defense was pretty dang good last year. You know, Mike Pettine is actually looked at as a great coordinator that kind of turned them around until this happened, till that blown halftime play. And not only that, the Packers have been hitting on their offensive players in the second and the third round. Look at how good Devontae Adams is, right? Look at Tanyan catching everything as a tight end. You know, they cut the salary for Jimmy Graham and still came up on top. Their offensive line is like ranked top 3 in the whole NFL. You know, maybe they don't have that second or third top receiver, but they've been getting some great running backs with Jones. They had Jamal Williams, right? Then they drafted A.J. Dillon for no reason, but still. I mean, it's just so interesting to me that the Packers did so good in the later rounds that he's still upset because they drafted his replacement. So, at the same time, I think Rodgers might be overreacting a little bit by requesting a trade. You know, saying he's not going to play type thing in this situation. I mean, the Packers are ready to win right now. Going to Denver, I think, would be a downgrade for Rodgers. I'm not sure they're a contender there. Yeah, they have some young receivers and everything, but I don't love their offensive line. They got rid of a lot of defense there. You know? It's just very strange to me that he reacted this much. Especially when your offense is number 2 in yards per game. And your defense last year, which was drafted by the general manager, Gutekunst, 329.9 yards allowed, 7th best. And some of that was garbage time, you know, when the Packers were blowing these teams out. So it's not like the team wasn't really good anyways. They did some good stuff there. You guys just had a spat. It just seems like a little bit of an overreaction. And so both sides here are to blame some, but I don't believe that Rodgers is going to give up on the Packers because he's owed way too much money. And he'd have to give way too much back. $23 million of his signing bonus in order to retire. I mean, he can hold out a few games and screw him up, I guess. But at the same time, if you're the Packers, do you trust him to be completely motivated to try to win a Super Bowl? I mean, if it was me, I'm competitive. Even if I don't get my way, I'm going to try to win for my team. But having a bad attitude coming in is never a good thing either. And that's why teams eventually do trade unhappy players, right? That's why they do them. They trade them to not pay them, or they trade them because they're unhappy and they think is going to be a distraction. Well, this is the biggest distraction next to the Deshaun Watson situation, which almost looks like he might be playing this year. So my thoughts are it's just a horrible communication problem. I believe there's some bitterness in this organization. I believe it's a power trip of the Packers organization and what they did to Aaron Rodgers. You got to give the guy a little bit of say for playing all those years. But at the same time, Aaron, Jesus Christ, man, you're on such a very good team. Why are you trying to screw this up? And even as a Bears fan, I obviously don't want him to come back and play. But this all just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Now with Gutekunst there, if he trades Aaron, it's almost like Aaron won, and he's really going to get it from the Packer fans, especially if they don't make the playoffs this year, right? How bad would he look if he had to trade him? He'd almost look better if he just let Rodgers sit for as long as Rodgers is going to sit. But at the same time, is Rodgers going to do that? I don't know. I think he's bluffing, but he's definitely not helping his team out by sitting out. He signed a contract. Aaron Rodgers signed his decision-making away when he took that long extension. He's on contract for 3 more years. When you do that, you can't expect to have control, Rodgers. That's the other part that I side with the team on. Why did you sign that long if you wanted more influence in what they were doing? That's your fault. But what an ugly situation. And I think it's going to repair itself. I think he's going to end up playing for Green Bay this year. And those are all my thoughts. Without further ado, my friends, let's get into the Preakness Stakes with Mr. Marco D'Angelo from Wager Talk and Chris Fallica from ESPN. And now I'm very excited to welcome back 2 of the best cappers in the sports betting and the horse racing world. You know them as Mr. Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com and the Pony Pundit Show, and Mr. Chris Fallica from ESPN College Game Day, Daily Wager, and the Stanford Steve and the Bear podcast. Please follow them on Twitter at Marco in Vegas and at Chris, Fallica. Guys, thanks for coming on to talk about the 146th edition of the Preakness Stakes. And lots to talk about, lots of controversy going on in this race, guys. Chris, I know you're just at the Derby. You going to be at this race?
No, I'll be home this weekend, which is quite all right. I will steer clear of Pimlico and just look forward to watching the Friday and Saturday races from my couch.
Well, you got a new couch because you have a new house, man. Are you breaking that?
No, we don't have no new couch yet. Furniture's all on back order, so
okay.
So maybe by the time by the time the Travelers rolls around, we'll have the new furniture in. But we got the new TV, so that's all that matters. So we're good there.
Everything's on back order right now, including gasoline.
Exactly.
From what I'm seeing here. Well, good stuff, man. Congrats on the new house, of course, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the big race. And sometimes watching at home is the best thing to do. Marco and I will probably be on poolside, I'm guessing, in our abode. So we'll be texting a little bit back and forth, Marco. But before we get into this big race, I would like to discuss a little pigskin with you guys because I have the opportunity, and you are 2 of the best. And I'm going to start with you, Marco. I have to figure this out. I keep scratching my head here. I'm looking at these season win totals in the AFC North, and they made an error because they put the Steelers behind the Browns in 3rd. Man, I mean, what's going on with that here?
Yeah, you know the text I sent you this morning that I shared with you. You know, you asked me when to talk about the AFC North, just so I had to admit that the Browns are better than the Steelers this year. That's just wrong on so many levels, Kiev. As long as I've been doing your show, to do that and, to come right out with a low blow below the belt. But, yes, the Browns are better than the Steelers this year. That is not a misprint. The Browns, honestly, it's them in Baltimore to win the division. And I think they can pull it off. Second year with the head coach, some stability finally in Cleveland, and you got a coach that understands to make your quarterback a better quarterback. Run the football, don't pass on every down. And that right. Defense is good when it's healthy. Unfortunately for them, they had last year some injuries. And one thing lost about the Cleveland Brown season last year, they had a stretch. I think it was 3 or 4 games in a row where weather was horrible at Cleveland. No offense being scored, tremendous wins and everything. So, they were a lot better than they looked last year, and that really pains me to say.
Oh, man, that's brutal. And it must feel different to be in this situation here as a Bears fan and Chris as a Jets fan. I mean, this is nothing new to us, sitting in the doldrums here. But to be honest with you, I mean, it's still not a bad season win total, and I don't have the Browns by much more than the Steelers. I know the Steelers had a little bit of bad luck at the end. They were healthy for the first part of the season. They had the easiest schedule maybe in football, but hey, you still got Big Ben there, and I'm not 100% sold on the Browns yet, but I just had to rip on you a little bit for that since you ripped on my Miller Lite last week. So had to get you back a little bit there. But no, I think I agree with you. Do you have anything else for the NFL? I mean, the schedule, it's early. The schedule just came out.
Yeah, you know what? The NFL's not cooperating with me. The biggest weeks of the horse racing season are the Kentucky Derby and, the Preakness and the Belmont. Well, we had the NFL draft. Then we bring out the season NFL schedules for Preakness. I'm not happy with the NFL. I'll start looking at the NFL after this week. I'm going to concentrate on horses.
No. Well, fantastic, and that's where you should be. And a little bit of college football then for Chris. And I guess, just on the top of your head, who are your top 5 teams? And it's probably the way too early top 5 teams because we're not even in June yet. But just curious if it's any different from the other years.
It really, for me, isn't, I think. In terms of maybe the order for me, it might be. Because I think going into the year, you've got to have Clemson number 1. And I think that's only because of the weakness of the ACC and the fact that Clemson, I think, of all of these other top 5 teams, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Georgia, whether it's whomever, I think they have that combination of schedule and there isn't really a drop-off at quarterback. There isn't really a question mark at quarterback. Where with Alabama, you've got a first-year starter in Bryce Young, and you have to replace those receivers and a ton of guys on defense. Where with Clemson, yeah, you have to replace Trevor Lawrence, but DJ Uiagalelei played last year, and he showed he can really lead that offense at a very high level. And then you go down Clemson's schedule, and they have that great opening game against Georgia Week 1 in Charlotte. And even if they were to lose that game, odds are they're going to run through the ACC, win the ACC championship game, and find themselves back in it. And if they lose it, they still have maybe they can still get in because of that schedule. And on the other hand, if they win it, then maybe that's a quality win for them. Maybe they can maybe get in with one loss down the road, having a win over the Bulldogs. So I would have Clemson 1. Alabama 2, Georgia 3, even though Georgia losing George Pickens is a massive loss. But I think the fact that they're going to have JT Daniels for an entire season is big. And I think this is a year where Kirby Smart, I don't want to say has to win, but again, on the flip side, as I said with Clemson, if Georgia were to win that game, they maybe could afford a loss in the SEC championship game if we get down to a situation where maybe it's 1 versus 2, who knows? But if they win that game, then they're going to be favored to win every game until the SEC title game. So it's a massive Week 1 game, and then just because of pedigree and belief and the gap between them and the rest of the Big Ten, I'm going to have Ohio State 4, even though the Buckeyes have some newcomers both on offense and defense. And then at 5, I mean, flip a coin. Probably Oklahoma, just because of the way that they played defense finally to end the year, even though they lose guys like Ronnie Perkins, but Spencer Rattler's back. And until they lose a Big 12 championship game, I guess you kind of have to put them on top, even though I'm really looking forward to that Oklahoma-Iowa State game in the regular season, then hopefully, potentially another Iowa State-Oklahoma rematch in the Big 12 championship game.
Geez, are we going to bet Iowa State again, Chris? We're going to have to. We're going to have. We both hedged it, right? I believe it was.
Yeah,
it wasn't an easy hedge by any means because we laid a lot of juice when we did that. But yeah, I'm higher on Oklahoma.
Why didn't Brock Purdy throw the ball away?
What are you doing, man? I agree, and I hate to say it, I have the same ones. Alabama on top, even though Sarkisian's gone. I wonder if that's going to be massive for them or not. I don't know. But Sarkisian was, I mean, the plays that he called, and of course the way Mac Jones ran it, and with all the talent they had, they looked unstoppable, and they were unstoppable. So, I mean, I wonder how much you power rate him. I've been scratching my head a little on that.
Yeah, not automatic that Bill O'Brien goes in there and does the same type of job that Sark did.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, Bill O'Brien makes me worried, and I know he's friends with Belichick and all that too. But Saban there. But yeah, I scratch my head, and I still have Alabama number 1, probably because I had them so much higher. But then I have Clemson with Uiagalelei, and he should be a good. I seen him play; he was fine. He's not quite Trevor Lawrence, but maybe this year he will be. Ohio State, I have number 3, but I have number 4 Oklahoma. And I think they have the biggest upside here just because they returned all that production. They could kind of be the Alabama of this year if Grinch and that defense show up, like they're supposed to. Maybe, they could, just from what they had last year, I put biggest upside because of the returning factors there. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley, and obviously Spencer Rattler. So, and Georgia I have 5th. And I don't think this is going to change that much year to year, Chris, unless the playoffs expand, and it wouldn't even be right away. I mean, I guess if the playoffs expand, maybe some kids would stay at home that would, almost guarantee them a national championship at some point going to Alabama, it feels. But that's just another discussion. But right now, I agree with you 100%. But I do want to say one quick thing. I looked at the Pac-12 myself, and there's 4 teams in the Pac-12 South that look like they could be really good. I mean, for, their competition anyway. USC, of course, but I got UCLA, Arizona State, and Utah. All returning a ton of people. And if you remember, UCLA was really good last year. I'm thinking that division, I might just take the best odds out of the Pac-12 South to win that conference. Obviously depends how that turns out. Did you get a chance to look at the Pac-12 yet?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think the way UCLA finished the year last year and really had a couple of games against Oregon and USC, the 2 teams that played for the Pac-12 title, that the Bruins absolutely should have beaten USC, and they very easily could have beaten the Ducks up in Eugene. So I think Chip Kelly likes his team. So I think UCLA is going to be a buzz team, and then we'll find out about the rest of the league. Can Washington make a step forward in Jimmy Lake's second year? It's so hard because I think in the Pac-12 and the Big Ten especially, I really don't want to overreact to a lot that happened last year because it was a weird year. Those leagues went from we're not playing to we're going to play, but it's going to be start late, play only 6 or 8 games or whatever it is. So I don't want to overreact to a lot of things in that conference last year. But I think the Pac-12 is still definitely last in the pecking order when it comes to those Power 5 teams.
Yeah, they're certainly last. But I'll tell you this: in the NCAA tournament, they sure took a step forward.
Hey,
so
absolutely,
yeah. I mean, you wonder if any of those teams are going to have that in them. And I suppose that brings me to the next question, real quick. Is there anything in Heisman that's kind of being thrown at you right now? I mean, the usual suspects are on top: Spencer Rattler, of course, and then Alabama, and I think JT Daniels is probably in the mix there too. Is there anything last year, and I don't know if it was this show or it could have been our August show that we did, Chris, about the preseason. You gave out Jalen Waddle, and he was like 80-1, and you have to wonder if Devontae Smith wasn't there and it was Waddle and didn't get injured. Is he holding the Heisman, man? Holy cow!
Yeah, that one. That one stings a little bit, but that's okay. It was I had the right position, right team, wrong guy. I haven't
so close.
found anybody like that this year. I guess Uiagalelei would probably be the guy for me right now, just because of the big marquee game Clemson has to start the year, and the fact that they're either going to be number 1 or number 2 throughout the year. And I don't expect. I mean, maybe Bryce Young could have that type of year, but he certainly won't have that type of buzz going into the year as Uiagalelei. So right now, DJ is my guy.
No, there you go. And I didn't put a ton of thought into it, but just going back to the Pac-12 South, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA, is going to be a huge dog to do this. And then JT Daniels, who's the quarterback for ASU?
Steven Slopes.
No, that's USC. Who's ASU's quarterback? Daniel.
Oh, Jake Daniels.
Yeah. Sorry. He should be somewhat of a favorite, but I wonder how much he carries that team. So those would be the two I'm going to kind of look at here before we get too deep into the season. But as we know, this is going to be focused on the Preakness. And I think the elephant in the room for every single horse show this week is our good old buddy Bob Baffert here. So I have to ask Marco, who's owned, bred, and raced horses for most of his life. If I wanted to get into ownership and try to win the first race, before I get completely drunk, which cough syrup should I use before I piss all over the hay in my Thoroughbreds breakfast to ensure a win?
I got to say that for all of the excuses I've ever heard in my life of trainers trying to point blame in a different direction, that had to be the best one yet. I mean, it is so beyond silly for the fact, first of all, how much cough medicine did this guy take that he could, urinate in the back of the stall enough?
He has a gallon of Robitussin.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Let's get more creative. But I am going to just say this about Bob Baffert. When I was watching the initial press conference Sunday morning, and I was listening to him adamantly denying that horse ever got Decamethazone, I actually believed him. And when I was listening to him, what it reminded me of is, your girlfriend or wife or something, you think she's having an affair with her boss, and you confront her, and she vehemently denies it and tells you, I did not have an affair with my boss. I'll swear on my mother's grave. Well, you know what? You believe her. She said it, and she looked you right in the eye. The problem is it wasn't with her boss. It was with Bill in accounting. That horse got something else, but it wasn't Decamethazone. Now, here's the thing, and I don't want to, let you guys think that I'm a chemist or anything, but there is another drug in horse racing that has almost the exact same chemical, molecular, that's beyond my pay grade, makeup. And that is Decamethazone. And they have the same effects, what would be beneficial to a racehorse. What are those effects? Well, they're both used in treating in humans. They're used in rheumatoid arthritis. Well, if you got aches and pains in the joints and so forth, you're not going to run real fast. So that would be something that would enhance a horse's performance. But the other one is it's also used kind of as a dilator in the lungs, where people with asthma and so forth, it increases the air capacity to the lungs. Well, we all know you can't run if you don't have oxygen, and that is beneficial as well. So I believe, Bob, that they didn't use Decamethazone, but I do not believe, Bob, that he did not use something else. That's my story, and I am sticking to it. And that one is way more believable than me taking a piss in the back of the stall.
Yeah, I believe nobody took a piss there for sure, but I'm not sure about the drugs, and you guys follow horse racing more than I do. I'm intermediate, I would say. And, you hear about how dirty it is. And I got to tell you, man, I had my suspicions about Baffert before last year's Kentucky Derby. Just not enough to talk about. And then after his horse won last year, what was the name of that horse again? He beat Authentic. Then I really was like, what is going on here? I mean, honestly, but I still don't have the reputation or the know-how or the knowledge to feel like I would give an accurate assessment. It being that I don't bet every single week. I don't bet horses every single week. But after this happened, I was like, what the hell's going on? And then this story comes out a long time later. It took forever for this story to come out. I think there's definitely something to it. So and like you said, Marco, he sounded really adamant, but when somebody's under if his whole reputation is on the line here, and he's gonna say whatever it takes to get that off of him, right? So in my opinion, I'm just trying to decide if he's going to do it again anytime soon.
Of course he will. Of course, and that's part of the problem is the guy has had, whether it's been Charlatan, Gamine, Justified, that's in the last 2 years, horses that we're talking about. And the ridiculous excuses that he's made up, whether it's been a groom pissing in the hay with cough syrup. Oh, no, I had an assistant trainer who had a lidocaine patch on his back. That must have been it. Oh, no, there must have been some Jimson weed that tainted the hay. And the issue is the California Horse Racing Board has bought every line of bullshit excuse that he's given them because they need him to enter his horses in races in Southern California in order to have racing. Like, they can't just throw the guy away. So the California Horse Racing Board is really the one, if you're looking for one particular governing body in all of racing that's really enabled this to happen, it's them, because they need him and they need his horses to be able to fill fields in California where there aren't a ton of horses right now. And we get back to this past weekend. I have a buddy who's pro sports bettor but does not bet horses. And he texted me, and we're on a group thread, me and him and another buddy of ours. And he texted me on Derby Day asking, who am I rooting for? Who'd you bet? Who do you like? And I said, I got a 6-horse Exacta and Tri-Box with essential quality, Mandaloon, Hot Rod Charlie, Rock Your World, and Dynamic One. So, and you see the dots that he's read it and responding back. And his response to me was, why didn't you just bet Baffert's roided up horse? That's the perception out there. That's someone who doesn't bet horses. But that's what people think of him, and people think of the industry. So, yeah, I agree. What Marco said, though, is key. The way Baffert phrased it, I did not give him Betameth, but you know what? There are other medications that can be given that maybe produce Betamethasone. There was a really good column written by someone, I believe it was on the In the Money podcast website that was written by someone who was into the pharmaceutical business, and he gave like 4 hypotheses as to ultimately what happened. Either number 1, Baffert was lying; number 2, nothing was given to him; number 3, something was given to him by someone other than Baffert; or number 4, it wasn't the Betamethasone; it was more like the SGF drug that Jason Service and Jorge Navarro got busted for, which somehow produces that. So all of the outcomes there are not good. But I think once that split sample comes back, and we all agree that, and I think that it will come back positive, and Mandaloon gets put up to first place, the bettors are the big loser because they can take the purse money away from Baffert and their owners, but you can't put the money back in the betting pool and reward all of those people who had Mandaloon at 28-1.
Yeah, and the same thing happens in the UFC. I remember I faded John Jones a couple times. He comes up dirty. It's like, well, that's great. My money's not coming back. Same theory going on right there. And it's funny. I did have a small play on him just because it was Baffert. I was like, well, this Baffert horse got killed in the Santa Anita Derby by Rock Your World, but at the same time, he's Baffert horse. I don't know what Baffert's doing. I did a small WPS on him, and I should have, Mandaloon was the one I didn't have. God, if I did, that would have been much sweeter. But it's like, at the same time, I wonder what Baffert's chances are of cheating this week. Some cheaters can't stop. I have no idea what to think. And, one thing I do know is if I did take some cough medicine to piss on hay, it wouldn't be NyQuil, because I don't want my horse falling asleep, but maybe something like Mucinex, because that has another illegal substance in it, ephedra. So, not the stuff off the shelves behind the glass, the Mucinex behind the glass. So that's maybe the direction I would go. But enough of that. Let's move into the Preakness Stakes itself, because that's what we're here to talk about. Try to make some money here. Marco, can you give our listeners some background on the Preakness Stakes?
Well, obviously it's the middle jewel of the Triple Crown. It is the shortest of the 3 Triple Crown races. And oftentimes what you get here in this race is you're going to get a fresh horse. Horses that didn't go to the Derby, they skipped the Derby. Either they didn't have enough points, or they felt that they were better at the shorter distance and didn't want to roll back in 2 weeks. But history has shown over the years that the majority of the time, it is those Derby horses coming back on short notice that have done extremely well in the Preakness. So, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. But now, as you said, we opened the show with, what does Medina Spirit get? Does it get the full cocktail this week? Or is Bob Baffert, do we got to race the old-fashioned way on hay and sunshine? We don't know. Now, there is one other thing to point out about Medina Spirit's performance last week or 2 weeks ago in the Derby. Just like Rock Your World won the Santa Anita Derby so easily, what happened was Rock Your World got left alone on the lead, uncontested. And I can tell you that most racehorses, especially ones with any amount of talent, that when they are left alone, they braven up. And they're that much harder to beat in the stretch. And that's what happened, in my opinion, with Medina Spirit. Nobody really got to. The only horse that went with them at all was Soup and a Sandwich, and that horse was done early in that race. I think ended up getting beat by 60-some lengths. So never really faced it a test. The big question is going to be, is there are two horses that like to leave as well, and they're not going to let this horse alone on the lead, but one of them is a stablemate, and now we can play conspiracy theorists. What do they do? Because Concert Tour is the main rival in this race. Skip the Derby, is fresh for this one, but Baffert's going to be giving orders. Do not get in a speed duel with each other. And the other horse is Midnight Bourbon that, Hasgate Speed was taken completely out of the Preakness early on in that race. Is horses were playing bumper cars coming out of the gate. That horse needs to race at or near the front end to be effective, and was not anywhere near the front end early, ended his chances. So it's going to be interesting. Smaller field, less traffic, fractions. I wish we had in-race betting, Chris. You know how we have in-race
Exactly.
in-game wagering in sports, because how many times have you sat there at the quarter and you knew if your ticket was good or no good? And that's going to be a case here.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like that's a great point you made about the start of the race. Because I don't know if, because of what happened with the positive test, I don't think people have really caught on to what happened at the start, whether it was Rocky Roll and Joel Rosario coming out of the irons, or Midnight Bourbon and the start, and Smith not letting him run after that at all, basically running wide around the track, or was it Sainthood, the other Todd Pletcher horse with Corey Lannery, who should have been near the lead but wasn't. Everything just kind of fell into place for Medina Spirit, and you're right, there is zero chance that Arad Ortiz does not send this Midnight Bourbon to the front on Saturday. You look at his past performances, his 2 lifetime wins have both come in front-running fashion. I don't think he's good enough to win, but I think he's going to have a definite effect on whether Medina Spirit does, because I think he's absolutely going to go to the front. And then what happens with the horse that ran in the Dubai Derby that Rosario is on now? He's a horse that Concert Tour has been ridden by Joel Rosario every start, and now Mike Smith is on him. So, you and I were talking about this earlier, we don't know why that was. Did Rosario make a choice? Did Baffert make the choice for them? But I think that horse that Rosario is on, in his past performances, he likes the lead as well. So I don't think this is going to be a race where you're going to have Medina Spirit pressed by Soup and Sandwich for 3/4 of a mile before he backs up. And that's it. I think there are going to be at least 2 other horses on the pace right there. And I think it really is going to set up for one of the horses from the second flight, the stalking flight, to potentially go by late.
Okay, so in the Preakness, 1 mile and 3/16 for our listeners, which is 9.5 furlongs. It's a little shorter than the Derby, which is 10 furlongs long. So in many cases, some of those horses that are not closers don't do well in this, or do well in this race. The closers do not do well in this race. Maybe we'll have to talk about the Belmont when we talk about that. But the speed horses tend to be favored here. And, some of these horses, like you said, did take some time off. So I'm really interested in some of those. And what you said right in the beginning, Marco, we don't know if he's going to get a cocktail. Because when it comes to these types of situations when you're so high up. It's like in politics, it's kind of like, I know the people are undering me are cheating for me, but I don't want to know that information. It's kind of the wink, wink thing. I'm sure it's not like Baffert sitting there injecting his horses. It'd be a trainer under him, and he doesn't want to know that. But he does know it happens type situation. So he can be honestly deny it because he hasn't seen it, but it probably happens. So that makes me just when it comes to a liar, it makes me think that it can happen again. I don't know. I guess Medina Spirit would be a deserving favorite because of what he did in the Derby here. But I also think it might not be a terrible thing to fade him if they're really going to be poking him and prodding him and testing him a lot, right? I think what's more important, Medina Spirit winning this race and coming up still dirty, or him not winning this race and coming out clean? I think it's probably for his reputation. He wants to be clean in this situation. So that just kind of brings up my next question. And I suppose it's the fractions. You said that Midnight Bourbon might be taking the lead here. Is he going to have some suicide fractions here? We'll start with you, Chris.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like suicidal, ridiculously fast, but it's when you are not pressed as much as you should be, and Marco alluded to it, these quality horses, they can continue to go. It's all about the pressure and how difficult or how easy they're going up front. If you're going easy but going fast, you can sustain it. But if you're being pressed, then that's the thing for me. Is the being pressed part, and I think that's going to be the thing. He's inside, and he's going to have at least two horses right to his outside that are pressing him, and I think that ultimately will be his undoing. And just one other thing before we get too far into the actual handicapping in the race, I'm really disappointed in both Brad Cox, who has essential quality, and Mandaloon, who ran second and fourth in the Derby, and Hot Rod Charlie. Now, I have not read that there was an injury. Maybe there was and I missed it, but there really is no reason for any of those three horses outside of injury not to be running this weekend. This is not a strong Preakness field at all. And the fact that you've got Brad Cox with two horses that he has who can run, and you've got a really good story in Hot Rod Charlie who can run, like, why not take a chance and give, people can laugh and mock Dwayne Lucas all they want for running all these long shots and Triple Crown races, but you know what? He's running. This horse Ram, who he's entering on the rail, broke maiden for $50,000 at Oaklawn, and then won an allowance race on Derby Day, and he's taking a shot. So good for him, and I'm disappointed that the second, third, and fourth place finishers in the Derby are not running.
Rock Your World should be running too, in my opinion. He did have that big Buyers score, big Buyers score in the Santa Anita Derby. So agree with you there.
He sure didn't run 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, right. He coasted. He had other things on his mind to maybe his hay did have some NyQuil when he had his breakfast. But so I'm looking at the ticket itself and the strength of the field. And Chris, you kind of touched on the fact that this field could be a lot stronger if some of the best horses were in it. So you kind of answered that. I took two horses that I'm throwing out, and I could be wrong here. I'm throwing out number 2, keep me in mind, and I'm throwing out number 7 for now. Now, you guys definitely can talk me out of that. And the top horses I'm keying in is the 4, Crowded Trade, the 5, Midnight Bourbon, and the 10 horse Concert Tour, because Concert Tour did skip. And I still want to use Medina Spirit, and I could be, he could destroy me, obviously, if I didn't put him on top of 1 or 2 tries or a certain type of exacta box. I'm probably going to do that. But those are, that's what I want to throw out, and those are my tops. So I'll start with you, Marco. Who are we throwing out first, and who are you kind of keying in?
Well, Chris alluded to Dwayne Lucas putting horses in no matter what they look like. And the number one horse fits that category to a T. I don't understand how this horse is entered in here. Doesn't have the speed figures to compete with these horses. This is a horse that didn't break his maiden until his 8th try. And when he did, that was in a maiden claimer. Okay. And now he's in a Triple Crown race. So if the number one rams his way into the top 3, he's going to ram my tickets right into the trash can. So that's first and foremost for me. Now, you did mention the 2-horse, Kiev. Keep me in mind. Now, this is a horse that I am actually shocked that they entered him in this one. If I would have thought they would have went anywhere with this horse, is they would have skipped this one and maybe pointed to the Belmont because of the horse's racing style. This horse breaks from the gate slower than I would break from the gate, and then does have that big close, but he's so far out of the race so many times, he's subject to the pace in front of him. And then when you're in the Kentucky Derby, when you have a slow pace in front of you, and then you've got 18 other horses in front of you as well, you're going to run into traffic problems. So the only thing I'm going to say is if we do get suicide fractions, which is always a possibility with 3 speed horses in here, this is a horse that could run late in that last 16th of a mile and ruin one of your trifectas or superfectas on the back end of it. So I wouldn't dismiss him completely out of it, but I don't have him as a win candidate. The other horse you mentioned, Kiev, the 7-horse, the question mark is why is Joel Rosario riding this horse and not Concert Tour? I have not been able to find anything. Chris hasn't found anything. The only thing if this was a decision by Bob Baffert, which I would never sit down Rosario off of a horse, but he could be upset in the way the horse was raced in his last start when he went to suicide fractions, went head and toe like a match race with Caddo River. They got away with that once, but coming back a second race in a row and doing the same tactic with a speed horse when the whole goal is you want to get to the Derby, but you want to have gas left in the tank when you get to the Derby. And I think that is why we did not see Concert Tour in the Derby. That horse needed a break. And maybe he made the decision because of that ride. And if that is the case, and I'm only speculating because I don't know, that makes me like Concert Tour a lot more in this one because we know what Medina Spirit's going to do, and we know what Midnight Bourbon's going to do. Mike Smith, if he's smart, sits right off of those 2. And then he has first run after those 2 are done battling each other. And that would set him up for a big race. And then the other horse that you mentioned, Kiev, that I do like, you mentioned the 4-horse, Crowded Trade. This is a horse that's going to be in that stalking position as well. Not going to be a stone-cold closer, but it's not going to be involved in the race in those early fractions, and will have a jump on the closers when they're turning for home. So right there's my 4 horses in the race, the 10, the 5, the 3, and the 4. Those are the horses that I like in the Preakness.
Good, because that's pretty much what I had with the 3 there too. Chris, how about your throwouts and keys?
I think I think if you like Medina Spirit, you're going to get a better price than the 9 to 5 morning line, because I think what you're going to see this weekend is people. I like to have. I have a theory that people like to bet on what they want to see happen as opposed to what will happen. And I think a lot of people want to see Medina Spirit lose, and they don't want to bet on him, and they want to root against him. So I think you're going to get fewer people betting on Medina Spirit because they don't want to bet on him, and they want to see him lose, and they want to root against him. And I think you also have a group of people who, like we've talked about, who don't think this horse is going to be juiced, and they think the only reason he won the Derby was because he was juiced, and they don't think he'll be juiced in the Preakness, and he won't be as effective that he was in the Derby. So I think that's probably going to drive that price up just a little bit here from the 9 to 5 morning line, and maybe you get 2 to 1 5-2 on Medina Spirit, and at that price, I am absolutely playing. But Crowded Trade is my top pick in the race. I think if you go back in his past performances, he's only run 3 times in his life. He broke maiden for fun at first asking. His second career start was his first start against winners was in the Gotham when he caught a really fluky long shot winner that day, and the track was weird. Looked like he was going to win that race, and then just the speed bias that caught up with him there. And then 3-1 in the Wood was 7 wide, just a terrible trip, and it looked like he was going to wind up winning the Wood, and he didn't. He's been effective from just on the lead or off the lead, and I think obviously you've seen Javier Castellano and I apologize for that.
Oh no, I still got you. You're good.
Okay, yeah, no. So I'll just pick up. All of a sudden, ESPN.com I had on in the background and started playing some video. I thought all of a sudden I heard this music in my ear. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, there you go, Marco. Jinx.
All right, so all right, let me try and find a spot to pick up again.
No, you were talking about. Of course, you got through the prices and everything. Crowded Trade. Why he making a case?
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, Javier Castellano, Clarivate Stables, Shad Brown. We certainly teamed up in 2017 with Cloud Computing to win the Preakness, and I think I see a lot of the same situations here. And remember, don't be afraid to use prices in this race. If you go back over the last 8 years, every single year there's been at least one horse that was at least 10-1 that's cracked the exacta. And in that span of 8 years as well, the 24 horses that made up the trifecta, 13 of them have been at least 9-1. So you're getting prices in this Preakness, even if the favorite does wind up winning the race or cutting in the other exacta spot. So I think of all the price horses, Crowded Trade is my favorite. He is my top pick. I'm going to use him with Medina Spirit second and third. The other horse I do like in here is Bauer, who he's run on turf, he's run on dirt, he's run on synthetic. He doesn't have really any speed, but he does have Flavien Prat. And Flavien Prat has a tendency to get the most out of his horses every time he's run in a Triple Crown race. So while I don't think this horse can win, it would not surprise me to see him run big from sitting just off the pace, maybe getting up for second or definitely third. So I'm going to wind up keying like I'm going to play trifectas like 3 with 4, 5, 6, 9 with all, then press with the 4, 3 with 4 with all, 3 with all with 4, 5, 6, 9, and then 4 with 3, 5, 6, 9, 10 with all, 4 with all with 3, 5, 6, 9, 10, and then 4, 3 all, 4 all 3, stuff like that. The one thing that I would suggest staying away from would just be the Baffert cold exacta of Medina Spirit over Concert Tour, right? Betting the 310 cold, because again, you can say historical nuggets don't really have a say, but you have not had a Preakness where the favorite has won and the second choice has run second since 1981. So it's been 40 years since it ran to the board favorite over second choice. So it's just not a good bet, and that exact is not going to come back very big anyway. So I would just save the $2 or whatever your base exacta price is, just to ignore and avoid that 310 exacta. 10-3 you could play, but 310 don't.
$2, man. I usually put a lot more on those two favorites when it comes to my exacta. But I know. Just you talking that, a double digit, dog 10-1 or plus hitting the exacta every single 10 years. I mean, I can see my ticket getting pretty expensive if that's the case with this. Sounds like you're hitting the all button on some of these too, so that's interesting. You're not throwing much out.
I think the field is so bad that I think you almost have to, like the two horses you mentioned, France de Goyena and Keep Me in Mind. There are throwouts, and Ram is a throwout. So I figure if you're keying one horse in a spot, and it's only going to cost you another $9 potentially to just use the all button, then just why not spend the extra $9 to do it?
Yeah. And the funny thing about Ram, Sire American Pharaoh, is that horse rings a bell. I don't know if it matters, but he's probably got a lot of horses out there, but that's interesting. So, okay. So it sounds like, a couple strategies. And Marco, you didn't have too much to throw out here. Interesting stuff. And so my guess, and this would have been my next question, but you guys kind of alluded to it already, who your sleeper is to win this race. And I'm guessing it's the 4-horse Crowded Trade.
Yeah, no question. I agree with Chris wholeheartedly. This is a horse that, when we get into the Derby trail, I always talk about horses that only have 3 or 4 lifetime starts. We have not seen the ceiling yet. They can take that big jump on, we use the phrase in football, any given Sunday. Well, any given Saturday on the racetrack, you could see a big jump from them. And I think Crowded Trade is the horse that could do that. Just to go back to one thing that Chris said about the exacta and the pricing in that, one of the reasons why you get that there's always a big number, it seems, to run underneath the ticket is in most years. Now, this year could be different because of the cloud around Medina Spirit, but the Derby horse gets overbet, okay? So if the Derby winner is getting overbet, that means there's overlays on the other horses in the race naturally. And then that horse why we don't get that cold punch 1-2 exacta with the 2 favorites, because somebody has to be the sacrificial lamb that's going to try to beat the Derby winner. And so often when you have 2 horses in there, it's that horse that's challenging the good horse that ends up fading, and it's one of those other horses that was sitting off the pace, not in the early fractions, and then running late past tired horses that comes up and becomes second. How many times have you seen 2 horses battle down the stretch, and you see the favorite put that other horse away, and then from the cloud, a horse comes flying and nips the favorite at the wire because he couldn't put 2 horses away? And that's, I think, what you end up seeing why you don't see the 2 favorites 1-2 in this race.
All right. No, good stuff. And Chris, you agree? Number 4?
Yes, I do. With pretty much with everything that he said there. A lot of times you get overbet horses that maybe are coming out of the Derby and shortening up. Remember Peace Rules was really overbet one year in the Preakness, where I think he ran second to Smarty Jones in the Derby, and everyone was like, he shortens up an eighth of a mile, and he's going to be really tough to beat in the Preakness, and he winds up going to the front and flattening out. So yeah, the way people have a tendency to react or overreact at times to what happens and what they see in the Derby, like it's the same thing with Belmont. When people, that horse is a stone cold closer, and he'll appreciate that extra quarter of a mile, from a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half. He'll be able to close into a mile and a half. It doesn't work that way. It's the mile and a half is more of like a grinder's type race as opposed to a stone cold dead closer. So yeah, just don't 20 horse feels like that, and some of the trips that horses get, just don't overreact to that.
All right. No, good stuff there. So I'm guessing it sounds like maybe a little bit of both, a little win place show on the number 4, and then some exactas, some tries. Looks like the strategy. Is that about right, Marco?
It does. And like I said, I really do expect a big race out of Concert Tour, but I think you're going to see that long shot gets overlooked. And Castellano is an upgrade jockey-wise. I know Eric Cancel has had a good meet in New York, coming off a real good meet, but he doesn't have the experience that Castellano has. And he's going to have this horse in the right spot in the race to make the move when you need it. And, you can't overlook jockey changes on horses. It's one of the best handicapping factors you can have going back and looking at it, because these guys make their money based on what that horse earns. And, when jockeys make decisions picking on or off horses, that's always a good handicapping tool to use in your arsenal. And look at the upgrades and the experience factor in the big races. And he is one that's been there and done that before. So I like Crowded Trade. I'm glad Chris and I agree on a long shot in this one.
All right, means we're all going to win. All in agreement. Love it. Well, great.
Now he just has to go out and run.
Yeah. Go out there and run and get a clean trip is all we're asking for you. So good stuff. Was there any other races that we want to discuss here, like the Black-Eyed Susan, or anything you want to throw out there?
I've got a horse that is a long shot in the Black-Eyed Susan that you guys know I love to go back and look at replays and watch the replays and watch what happened. And the number one horse in the Black-Eyed Susan, Army Wife, go back and watch the last race and just focus on Army Wife. Wasn't going to beat search results. We know how good that horse is. But I think was going to be second in that race. Got taken completely out of the race down the stretch right when the horse was making its move. I think if she gets a clean trip, she can be a big part of this ticket on Friday, and she's 8-1 in the morning line. So, get a little price there, juice up some exactas, take a look at that one. That's my tip for the Black-Eyed Susan.
Yeah, I got two that I'm looking at outside of the Preakness. One is Saturday in the, I guess they're calling it the dinner party right now, is the name of it this year. And Sacred Life is the favorite in there. It's 7-5, I think. And she is just a horse that is just devoid of speed and is really, really pace compromised and is going to need a really fast setup in order to get home. So I might try and beat her with Bye Bye Melvin, the 8 horse on the outside, who just missed last time out against Midnight Tea Time. Second off of a long layoff. Grand Motion typically does very well on this Mid-Atlantic circuit down there. So I think Bye Bye Melvin, who's 10-1 in the morning line, is worth a look in that race. And in the Hilltop on Friday, I like the number 1 horse, Tracy Flick. Insert your gratuitous election reference there. The election with Reese Witherspoon, not that other election, the film election. In case it went over people's heads.
We're talking politics, Chris. Come on.
I'm not going there. But people are going to look at Tracy Flick and see that she's still a maiden. But she got disqualified from first in her debut when a race that she won and was a short price in that race. Then in her second lifetime start, she just missed and finished second and got disqualified to like 7th. So, technically she hasn't won, and I think because of that, we're getting a lot better price than we probably should. It's Joel Rosario and Shug McGahee, and they're running a horse who's technically a maiden in a stakes race, and she's getting blinkers. And I think, again, the favorite, I believe, is very, very vulnerable. So I am going to bet Tracy Flick at 6-1 in the Hilltop on Friday. So those are two races that I'm looking at outside of the Preakness on Saturday.
All right, great stuff. Thanks for that, guys. I'm going to look at that as soon as this show is over. But before we go, Marco, you've had some massive tickets and some massive payouts over the years. Where could our listeners and viewers get your information for this weekend?
Head over to wagertalk.com. You can check out, I'll have a package up both Friday and Saturday with some horses and some sports. And the NBA, guys, a lot of people think the NBA is one of the toughest sports. I agree with it, but for whatever reason, this year we're on an incredible run with the NBA. This is the best NBA season I have had by far in my NBA career. We're currently on a 35-12 run in the NBA, or 33-12 last 45 plays in the NBA. So I will include all of my plays in the packages, both horses and sports, whatever I have. Check it out Friday and Saturday over at Wager Talk.
Fantastic. And Chris?
Steve and I have our pod up where we talk about Preakness, some tennis, some NBA, some NHL, a potpourri of topics, which will be pretty good. And cool. I have my Preakness picks column up on ESPN.com as well.
All right, check out ESPN.com to get that. Thanks so much, guys, for coming in and discussing the Preakness. We'll be texting this weekend. Best of luck to you guys in your plays.
Thanks, Kiev.
And now I'd like to welcome back to the Odds Breakers one of our fan favorites, the one, the only, Cub Fan Danny, back to break down UFC 262. You can follow him on Twitter at Cub Fan Danny. Buddy, what is happening? A little bit of a, well, big fight weekend, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a great card this weekend. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think there was even another fight that pushed. Wasn't the Edmund Shabazian fight against Jack Hermanson going to be this weekend? I thought they postponed it, but still a lot of people on this card.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think somebody got hurt, and they had to push one good fighter back. Okay. But no, it's still going to be a good card. It's still going to be fun, exciting. We've got some exciting cards on there.
Oh, absolutely. And Michael Chandler, we all saw him talk the talk after he beat up Dan Hooker. Now he has to walk the walk with somebody that's ranked quite a bit high, and Mr. Charles Oliveira. And Charles has been on a tear himself. I think he has about 8 wins in a row. So can't wait to get to that, man. Let's save that one for last, if that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So how are things going for you?
It's going good. Really enjoying the fights lately. They've been a lot of fun. That last pay-per-view card was probably the best card I've ever seen in my life. We had one guy had his leg torn apart and he couldn't walk. Another guy broke his leg in half. We had women getting knocked out, women getting submitted.
Thug Rose, man. Thug Rose.
Wow. Put respect on her name.
Oh, I know, right?
Put respect on her name. And she's beat the best of the best over and over again. I am so impressed with her. Boy, that was really a fun card. I left a friend's house after watching that and was just we texted for 4 days straight how great the card was.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And watching those replays was fun, too. Twitter was just blowing up all night long for that card. But this one has got an opportunity to, hopefully challenge it. And we have some big fighters. And it seems like the 155 weight class here, the lightweight, is, it's been loaded for a long time, hasn't it? And we got a couple big matches in this in that weight class, so I'm excited about that, Danny. Yeah. But before we get to those, let's see what you have, man. Why don't we kind of do the same thing? Go bet 1 for 1 here. I in my opinion, as a whole, I think the odds makers have it right in a lot of ways, but I thought there might be some opportunity here. So what do you got first?
Yeah, and you're right, and I think they got it pretty good. There's been a lot of sharp money, so a lot of the money is flipped. So I think this card's going to be an opportunity to get some additional plus money on your side, right? But in this case, the first fight I'm going with is Shane Burgos and Edson Barbosa. Edson Barbosa is just a fantastic fighter. He's been a warrior for years for the UFC, but man, I'm going to tell you, he's been horrendous his last few years, right? So since going back to 17, he's lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times and only won twice. Look, but he fought against some of the best competition. But at this stage of his life, he's 35 years old, a lot of mileage on that body. I still like him as a fighter. I was just watching his last fight against Makawan, and he did well. It just didn't seem like it was the same guy beforehand. He lost to Dan Ige, Paul Felder, Justin Gaethje absolutely destroyed him. So I think his mileage is kind of shot. In terms of the Shane Burgos fighting, look, you're going to get minus 140 on him. If you could have got it on early, you could have got a minus 120. He's an up-and-coming fighter. Even though his age is a little bit up there, he doesn't have a lot of mileage on him. He's 30 years old. He's still a young fighter, but he's fought some decent guys. Cub Swanson, Josh Emmett, he just lost to in his last fight with a decision. But the guy's got a lot of strength, really powerful, wants to stand up and throw. If Edson Barbosa is going to stand up and throw with him, I think this can seriously go right in the direction of Shane Burgos in a decision. I'm not confident with a knockout or a submission. I'm more confident in it going the distance. But if I'm taking somebody in this fight and I feel really confident, it would be Shane Burgos.
All right. Well, we have a disagreement here because here's what I look at. And what have you done as a whole? It's fine. You look at Shane. and he's an American. He's an up-and-coming. I actually watched his interview for this fight, and he looked very good, very poised. You know, he remembers some of Barbosa's reverse heel kicks, you know, his roundhouses, knocking people out with his feet, right? That's always that's always fun. He talked a lot about that, but you know, of course, on the stat line, Shane looks really good. 7.3 significant strikes landed per minute, 54% accuracy. But, I mean, what you said, Cub Swanson, I mean, all tier 2/tier 3 fighters, in my opinion. Now, Edson Barbosa used to fight in the 155 class, right? He took a step down here, and he, first he fought Ige. And Ige's a very good fighter, and Ige ended up beating him in a decision here. I believe it was a decision. It was either that or I think it was, well, either way. Then he fought Makwan, which both of these fighters beaten. But, you know, I look at some of the better fighters he fought, guys like Beneil Dariush. You know, he beat Dariush, you know, a while ago. And that's pretty impressive to me, you know, in my opinion. I think that his record is, you know, not as good. 21 wins, 9 losses, especially losing 5 of his last 7 fights. But look at the guys that he fought. Justin Gaethje, Paul Felder, you know, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Kevin Lee maybe, but still he beat.
Look, you're 100% right. You're right.
And I can't Anthony Pettis he beat. I just think he's beaten better fighters. And so I'm getting plus money on this guy. And I look at him as a 35-year-old, 21-9. He does have some miles, but he's still 35, you know. Shane Burgos, I just don't trust his record. So I'm taking the plus money. So we don't disagree much, Danny, but this was one of my larger plays here. So that's going to be interesting. It looks like you and I are going head-to-head on this again. So that's going to be fun. We're going to have to.
And that's okay. And that's okay to have that. You know, when I'm looking at this, and you're 100% right, I tell you who these guys have fought, he's just not the same fighter, right? I mean, he beat Dariush 4 years ago. Dariush is a different fighter now. He beat Gilbert Melendez 5 years ago. Pettis 5 years ago. So these are different fighters, right? He lost to Paul Felder in 15 and then lost to him again in 19, right? He's an older guy, and I'm looking at it and saying, I don't know how much left he has in the tank. His back could be up against the wall. He's still a powerful puncher. I just watched Shane. I really enjoyed his fight. And I know you said lower tier guys. The highest guy he's ever fought was Josh Emmett. It was a fight of the night. They did great together. I think he learned a lot from that fight because Josh Emmett is a top 10 guy, and that was his first top 10 guy fighting at that point. But look, he looked good. Can he be a champion? No. Was Edson a champion at one point? Pretty dang close. But again, I'm looking at the age factor here, his previous record, how he's looked in his last few fights, which haven't been great. That's why I'm going with Shane. I think Shane's going to be pretty hungry to beat a veteran like a legend like Edson Barbosa.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely should be hungry. If he wants to move up in class, he's got to win this fight.
Right.
Barbosa, I think, is better at 145. We'll see what happens here. I'm very curious myself. And yes, Josh Emmett, certainly a good fighter at 16-2, man. So, you know, no shame really in that loss. It was a unanimous decision, but you know, I'm just not sold on the price. Let's move on then. And you know what's funny about this fight too, Danny? It's similar to the handicap, and it doesn't mean you have to go with the older guy, to the Beneil Dariush fight. You know, it's similar because Beneil's 32 and he's fighting a legend in Tony Ferguson. And Tony's 25-5. Tony's had a bunch of title opportunities and things just never work out for him. I think he tripped and broke his knee or something one time. And then he finally did step up in class. I guess Anthony Pettis was a step up in class. He beat him. And he did beat Edson Barbosa. He actually won a ton of fights. This guy was amazing.
Yeah, what a man! I feel so bad for this guy. This guy's an absolute maniac. He's different. He's just different than all these other guys out there. Look, when he fights, it's really unorthodox. He's a weird guy fighting. Man, he was supposed to fight Khabib a few times, and each time he went to fight him, somebody got hurt. Always for a title fight. always got hurt. When he blew his knee out before that Khabib fight in I think it was 18. I mean, what a shame. What a stinking shame. He's come back, and I know you said he's older, right? Against Dariush.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this before. When you've got a fighter with his back against the wall, you're caging in that dog, you go 3 losses in a row, that's not a good thing for the UFC, right? At that point, they start looking to cut guys, right? Would they cut him? Probably not. But he looked bad against Justin Gaethje. I mean, he really bad. I think it took a lot of him when he went out to fight Charles Oliveira.
Well, at least he went 5 rounds. In the middle of 5 rounds, 3 minutes and 39 seconds into that Justin Gaethje fight.
Oh, just freaking destroyed him. And if you look at those odds in that fight, man, Tony Ferguson was really favored. I mean, he was a favorite in that fight.
Mm-hmm.
He was at the end of it. He was like a minus 200, 210. 260 in some places.
Yeah,
right?
we watched that one. I remember texting, and I couldn't remember if we did bet Gaethje. I thought we might have. Maybe one of us did. I don't know, but
this is during pandemic, yeah. So lockdown. So yeah, I mean, listen, Tony Ferguson. I don't know what your thoughts are on him, but even this fight, Kiev. This fight, he came in as the opening favorite at minus 125. So a lot of money went on Beneil Dariush because right now you can get plus money on Tony Ferguson. I at plus 155 with the dog against his back against the wall. I really like that. I really like Tony Ferguson in this fight. I know he's changed up his camp. His last 2 fights didn't look good. He became kind of stale in how he was doing it, so he changed a lot of things up. This is the best guy that Dariush has fought. Kiev.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, Dariush is kind of that guy, and he's been cashing our tickets, though, Danny. We've been on Dariush a lot lately, and he's been making me a lot of money. And, I mean, 6 in a row. We kind of pointed some stuff out. I think it was even you that kind of turned me on. I think it was against Camacho back in 2019, and he destroyed him. Then Drakkar, we were on him there. Then Scott Holzman, we were on him there. Then he finally is a favorite against Diego, and we still bet him, right? And we just saw Diego get beat, which is a little bit worrisome because you look at this, and yeah, Scott Holzman might be the best fighter, and maybe Drakkar, I don't know, that he faced, but nobody as tough as this guy. Would it be something if all of a sudden I went with the Dariush and we're completely on the old guy opposites? I am on Edson Barbosa, and you're on Burgos, and then I'd be on. Here's the thing: I don't like the price on Dariush here, and Dariush is very good, but he's fighting a really elite, definitely for sure tier 1 guy in Ferguson. And you're right, Ferguson's back is against the wall. You can look at 2 ways. Ferguson wants to retain his UFC standing. He wants to be in the UFC because a lot of the people get cut when they get older, unless your weight class needs you, like in heavyweight, and Alexi's there and all that. And Dariush needs this to step forward. He's not getting a title fight unless he wins this fight, and he's at minus 170. And what a flip in odds that must have been, man. It must have been a while ago when that came out because I'm even looking back to March. He was favored still. So, I have no opinion. I don't want to lay the minus 170 on this. I'm going to think more about it.
That's why I think when you look at I'm with you. I get it, right? But at this point, at plus 155, I'm sure maybe at fight time is going to be 170, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to see how his weigh-in goes tomorrow, on Friday. Ferguson, how he's looking. Again, I think he realized his last 2 fights were not good. I think he says he's changed up his camp. He's changing some things in what he's doing. And look, I've never seen a guy take a beating and still stand up. What happened with Justin Gaethje? Justin Gaethje tore him apart, and the guy still stood there for 5 rounds, standing, not going down.
I got Gaethje right under Khabib in this weight class, and Khabib retired. Yeah. So I literally have Gaethje as the best in the 155. So
yeah, 100%. You're 100% right. I think the guy is fantastic. For you to go 5 rounds with the guy, stand up, take that beating, and not go down. I mean, Dariush is nice. He's good. I don't think he's fought anybody like Ferguson. I think it's going to be a little bit. Ferguson can get back to his old fight before Gaethje. He's going to take him out, right? And he's going to pick him apart, and he's going to do a good job doing it. That's why 155 is super great value. I think it's fantastic value for a Tony Ferguson fight.
All right. Well, sounds good, man. And so I brought this fight up, and apparently I didn't have a play. I just wanted to talk about it. I do have a play in a little bit here. Do you have anything else besides the main event here?
No, those are my two big boys.
All right, well, there you go.
I think I made a bit after.
All right, so you get one of the up and coming, and one of the guys have been there for a while.
Yep.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the Caitlin Chukagian fight, and she's fighting Viviane Araújo, and Caitlin's favored. She's been around, she's been around a while, and she's fought the best of the best in her class, in my opinion. She really has. Viviane is coming in, and she looks good, but I don't really buy all the fighters that she's fought. She's 10-2. She looks very confident, but she also lost to Jessica Ai, and she's lost earlier in her career. But I mean, Roxanne Modafferi, that's her latest win. Montana De La Rosa, it was her other win. Alexis Davis, not too many big names. Chukagian's just fought much better competition, in my opinion. Here's the thing about it. You can lay the minus 140 if you want. But Chukagian, she does not win unless it's decision. If you look at all her wins, it's decision against Jennifer Maia, decision against Joanne Calderwood, which are really good fighters, right? She went to decision against Jessica Ai, and they both lost that one. Of course, Shevchenko knocked her out, and I'm not going to hold that against her. Shevchenko beats the shit out of everybody. She lost to KO to Jessica Andrade, and then she comes back and goes to a decision.
Yeah.
All of her wins, 2 KOs, 1 submission, which was probably way back in the day, and 12 decisions. I think you're going to get even money by betting on Caitlin Chukagian going the distance and decision. I'm just not sure that Viviane is ready for this kind of competition. So I'm going to play it just for a star, my man. She wins in decision. Any thoughts?
I think that's a great call. I typically stay away from the women fighters, but I think that's a great call. There's not a lot of power down at that division. If there is, it's typically the elite level fighters. So I absolutely like that play there. Love it. I think I'm probably going to go with that myself.
Awesome. And, if you just are worried about, it not going to decision, I mean, Viviane's last 4 fights went to decision, right? And when she fights, when she steps up in competition, she's not knocking anybody out. So she's going to decision too. And I think the odds itself, I think it's like minus 300 at least that the fight will go to decision. So I'll give you the exact number on that. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 440. Fight goes decision minus 380. So it's telling you that. So I feel comfortable with that. It's just kind of like pick your poison. Well, let's get into the main event then, Danny. Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. Now, what do we always say about the hype, Danny?
Yeah, bet against the hype.
Bet against the hype. Well, I'm going to let you start this one first and see if you're going to bet against the hype.
Okay, so there's really one fight that I could tell you that I watched for Chandler, and that was the last fight against Dan Hooker. And the reason is because he was fighting in Bellator before this, right? I can't tell you a lot of the guys that I've seen in Bellator because I'm not a huge Bellator guy. But I did watch Dan Hooker fight before. And I thought I was really, really impressed by Chandler. Very aggressive. He's smaller for that weight class, 100% smaller for that weight class, but he's really powerful. And he's short, which he has to fight inside, and he moves forward. He's a wrestler, which I really like a lot. I was really, really stinking impressed because of what he did to Dan Hooker, right? Charles Oliveira, he's been moving up. He's had some really good fights, and he's been taking guys out. But these guys are fighting for the title, right? Tell me when you hear a name that you remember. Clay Guida, Krestas Giagos, Jim Miller, David Tiamor, Nick Lentz, Jared Gordon, Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson. Right? The last two guys he fought, Tony Ferguson took him to a decision, and Tony was coming back from a major, major beating. Right? Kevin Lee shot up, was the hype machine, fell down when everybody realized he could not do anything on the ground, and he got choked. But before that, brother, it's just been average guys. Average guys. So can I go crazy with Charles Oliveira? I can't. To me, it's just like Chandler fighting in Bellator, right? That's the type of competition. They're both great fighters. They both move in. They both want to throw and stand. I think that watching Chandler, his power, I was so impressed with his power, his athleticism that he has, that when I look at these odds here, I can get plus money on Chandler. I think that's the direction I'm going to go in this fight. I know, don't take the hype, but Oliveira, to me, is another guy that can be beat, especially from a guy like Chandler.
Okay. All right. Now, that makes sense. And Chris Farley was on our podcast this week, and he agreed with you. And I got to tell you right now, Danny, I am shocked that Chandler's not favored. And I'm scratching my head. Why is he not favored? You saw him. Everyone saw him beat up Dan Hooker because that was the big Poirier versus McGregor weekend. That was a big UFC weekend, right? And he did beat Dan Hooker bad. Maybe he is ready. And a lot of people are saying, Chandler just gets into the UFC, but the dude was awesome in Bellator. But he also has made some stupid mistakes and lost to some fighters not even that long ago. Mm-hmm. 3 fights ago. 3-4 fights ago, he's lost to people he shouldn't have. He's gotten caught. And that's what makes me nervous for him. And that's why I didn't bet him. But, Chandler was plus one. Actually, Chandler was plus 145, and this was back in March, and he's all the way down to plus 115. But my opinion is that this thing might switch. So if you like Chandler, you might want to grab it. What I told Chris is that he does remind me of Volkanovski a little bit. His build, the thick legs.
Yes.
Low to the ground, just one weight class away from him. So Chandler has to back up the shit he's talked, calling out McGregor. It'd be pretty embarrassing if he didn't. But Oliveira, I will say, is very wormy in a way. He gets out of situations. He's a very good fighter. He's not going to overpower you necessarily. He wears you down, and that's how he gets his KOs later in the fight. The odds that it's going to go over 4.5 rounds is plus 245. They're looking for a knockout here. I wonder if Oliveira is going to last. Plus 180 over 3.5 rounds. Maybe I'm looking more in that direction. But I do agree with betting Chandler as the dog because I think you're not only going to get line value here. I would set the price at minus 110 on each side. That's what I would set the price at. I'm surprised that Chandler's a dog here, but it sounds like you like him here after he beat the shit out of Hooker.
Yeah, especially that power. It was really, really stinking impressive. Very short, very compact. And Oliveira likes to move in, likes to fight forward. So we're gonna have two guys wanting to throw hands. So somebody's going down, right?
Yeah.
I just the value there for Chandler. I've got to take it.
Yeah. I get it. Oliveira's won a lot of fights recently by submission too. It looks like.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I wasn't looking at him as a big powerhouse. I guess he did beat up Jared Gordon in the first round, but that was his only first round KO since, long time. The very long time, actually. I'm looking back at all his fights here. So he's
lost a lot. He's won a lot of fights in Brazil. I think that's really helpful for somebody that's fighting in their own country that backs their fighters. Sleeping in your own bed, comfortable with where you're at, right? Training where you're at. So I always think that's always a advantage for the home country guy. Coming here, I mean, he's done it before, but he's fought a lot of times in Brazil. I think that helped him a lot too.
Yeah. And I just don't, and I don't see him being able to submit Chandler. Chandler, he's never been submitted. Right. He's only been knocked out. So, interesting stuff. In Chandler's last 4 fights, all were in the first round, too. So, hear me talking about over 3.5. And it's funny, I've been hemming and hawing about this fight for days, Danny. And I'm still doing it on this podcast. It means I haven't made a decision yet. Yeah. So, I might just have to watch this one and sit back if I'm not liking it. But, I wouldn't be shocked if either thing happened. I don't know how Chandler lost to Patricio Ferrari, whatever, back in Bellator. I don't really know him. I don't think this guy's fought in the UFC. And then his last loss was back in 2017. That was almost 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not going to hold that against him. But 2 years ago he lost, and then he beat up a couple guys, and then Dan Hooker, obviously. So going to be a great fight, and this is going to be a great main event. So I'm going to think more about it. Anything else before we close out?
No, it's going to be a fun weekend. I think this card should be exciting. I think people are going to enjoy it. So figure out a way to go watch the fight.
All right. No, it's going to be the last 2 fights especially are going to be amazing with Dariush against Ferguson, and obviously Chandler versus Oliveira. Going to be fantastic. Make sure you guys get it. If you guys have any other questions about any of these fights, I'm going to continue to go through each of them and handicap them for the rest of the tonight and tomorrow. Please feel free to tweet us at the Oddsbreakers or tweet Danny at Cub Fan Danny. Thanks again for coming on, Danny.
No problem, buddy.
All right, everyone. Like I said before, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games this weekend, enjoy the Preakness Stakes, and go get some winners.